Let's talk some sports, baby.
Taken by Iguodala. Iguodala to Curry. Back to Iguodala. Up for the layup. Oh, blocked by Jordan.
And remember, make tomorrow better than today and make today better than yesterday. And you know what we gonna do. We gonna holler at you until next time, baby.
Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom. With Nathan Drinkard, I'm Jay Wise. Thanks for spending some of your time with us. Cody Ward's on assignment tonight. He will not be with us, but he'll be back next week. As a reminder to all our listeners, we're on all your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts. We're also on our new YouTube channel. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Just search Drink of Wisdom. You'll find us. What's going on, Drink?
Let's talk some sports, baby.
In episode 71, ESPN drops an exclusive NBA list. Major League Baseball and the NBA work to get reopened. And we discuss Brett Favre's comments on the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love situation. But first, we want to look back on episodes 7 and 8 of The Last Dance before this weekend's final two episodes. This past Sunday finally got to the big controversy surrounding Jordan's first retirement to play baseball during the 1994 season after his father's death. We also follow the Bulls during a brief stint without Michael, and then, of course, follow them after he said, "I'm back." Episode 8 also got to the infamous fight between Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan, en route to their fourth championship in 1996. So, Drink, what stuck out to you from these two episodes?
Well, like we usually been doing in the past, I took 3 key points from episode 7 and 8. My first point was Michael Jordan really a jerk, or was he? And I think about it like this. I understand in today's workforce, we have different arenas, let's say. You can't act the same way in sports as they act on Wall Street. Or you can't act the same way in child services as they act in sports. You can't act the same way in the military as they do in sports. So my point of saying all that is this. Do I think Jordan was a little rough? Maybe. But this is sports. One thing he said in that documentary that was very true, winning comes at a cost. It just does. And if you come in here like the average Joe, that's how you get treated like the average Joe. A lot of talent that came through, very good talent that came through, but they was like, they was meh. Jordan had a certain expectation of himself, which in return, he had a certain expectation of you when you was on the team with him playing. All right, so he crossed the line. He called, people some bees, called them garden hoes, you weak, you soft. He kind of bullied you. This is the game of sports. If you actually knew how the average coach talked to the average player, you would be amazed. Bobby Knight would look like he belonged in the Vatican if you knew how these coaches talk to players. You have to. It's sports. Michael knew this. As long as I'm willing to do what I'm barking out to other players, at some point this other player is going to see the realness in my heart, in my eyes, in my words, and they're going to come along. And like us as the media, we want to nitpick Jordan. We want to say, oh, he was such a terrible teammate. He put his hands on team players. He cussed out the coach. He talked about the GM. Listen, after this documentary, before the documentary, I thought Jordan was a tyrant. Like, he just went around just treating people like trash just because he was the best player in the world, most popular player in the world, whatever the case might be. That wasn't even it. He seemed to be a very, very good guy when he wasn't on the court. So it just seemed like he was a very competitive guy. Okay, and one thing in particular was the altercation with Steve Kerr. We hit on this. We couldn't wait to get around to it to see what happened. If my hearing is correct, what I heard was he said something to Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr pushed him in the chest and then he punched him in the eye. Well, that seemed like two competitors going at it. That don't seem like Jordan trying to beat up Steve Kerr and give him the business. I just felt like it was two competitors. Steve Kerr was fairly new. Jordan felt like, listen, you out here riding the wave from 91, 92, and 93, and you wasn't even on the team. Like, you have no stripes in this arena. You're going to earn them. So, yeah, Jordan pushed those guys. He said, come on with it. We play up here. I don't know where you've been playing before you got here, but I need you to come up here with me. So he got into it, but as we seen, he apologized right afterwards. He told Phil he was wrong, and we moved on. So my first point was, I don't think he was that as bad as of a teammate as people made him look. It was just he was a competitor, and we heard what he said. He shed a tear when he said it. He said, if you're okay with being mediocre, that's you. But I gave the game what I had. And if you was going to play with me, you was going to give it what you had too. And that's it. So if that made him a bad guy, then so be it. My second point is, hey, James Jordan never left Jordan's side. James Jordan, the late father of Michael Jordan, very big inspiration. We know what happened. Unfortunately, he died. Two guys came up to rob him. They killed him. And it had a big effect on Michael. Now, I won't say he retired because of his father's death, but I will say it had an effect because if you actually listen to what Michael was saying in the documentary, he had made his mind up to retire before his dad died. Him and his dad actually talked about what he was going to do when he played baseball. They was planning on, moving on to the future of playing baseball a little bit, just hit the reset button, what might have you. And then he died. And a lot of people say, oh, well, he retired because his dad died. He retired. No, he retired because he was getting over it. He actually retired because the media was getting outrageous. That's why he retired. The media was just trying to find anything they could say about the guy. Then on top of all this trash, you're going to go and blame his father's murder on him. That's just taking it too far. So, Michael said he had enough. He retired. And the uniqueness of this, the reason it stood out to me was because he goes and plays baseball. Wasn't a terrible baseball player, but he went and followed his dream, hit the reset button. I guess baseball came up to where they came up to a strike during the time he was playing. He decided not to cross the picket line. He went back to basketball, but he was so used to his father because his father had been there with him from, day one to the last day he played in 1993. So now this was the first time in his career that he was playing basketball again without his father. So now he got all these emotions and he don't have his father to lean on him. He don't have his best friend to talk to. He don't have the guy that he confide in. So now he's basically, he's harnessing all this in, and we seen it when he won the title on Father's Day. He was so filled with emotion, he couldn't even hide it. He couldn't even try to hide it. We seen him crying on the floor. We seen him rolling over. He was trying to get away from the camera. Man, could you imagine your dad being that much of an impact in your life, and then you had to go win the championship on Father's Day? A day where you usually give your father presents, let him know how much you thank him, all the sacrifices he made for you, all the advice he gave for you, helping you from a little baby pooping on yourself up to where the greatest player in the world, and you had to win a championship on that day. So yeah, I thought that's
very appropriate reaction.
Exactly. I thought that was very human of him. I thought that was a very, like you say, a very natural reaction. And it showed that, listen, we might think he a machine. We might think he a bold approach. But listen, at the end of the day, that showed that he is just as human as you and I. So at the end of the day, I love to see that. And I thought that made him look good instead of making him look bad. Like some people say, oh, he was crying, show he had a weakness. Man, stop it. Just because your relationship with your father might not be that good, don't try to drag him down. I thought that was a very key point. And then my third takeaway was this. Hey, everybody want to be Batman until it's time to be Batman. And I'm referring to one Scottie Pippen. We seen what he did at 1.8 seconds against the New York Knicks. I want to say that was game 3 of the semifinals in 1994. Yeah. So it is everybody want to be Batman till it's time. Listen, at the end of the day, this is definitely a bad look for Scottie. I'm gonna tell you what, this actually was under the radar as far as my knowledge until I seen it on this documentary. It was under my radar. Maybe I overlooked it or I didn't care to read into it. But it was under my radar. I cannot believe for a player as good as Scottie was, for a player that was at the peak of his career where Scottie was, you get mad because Phil drew up. You just watch Michael Jordan now. Just hear me out. You just watch Michael Jordan decide, all right, I know Doug Collins was putting the ball in my hand, but hey, Phil, if you want me to run the triangle and it works, then by God, I'll do it. And you see him change the way he played, the best player in the world, for the sake of winning. And then, because you feel like I done waited my turn to be the star, I should take the last shot because I'm the most dangerous player, and you don't like the play that, I might add, has won games for you this very season because Tony Kukoc evidently was a cold-blooded mother, watch your mouth, throughout the season. When it came to game winners, you gonna get upset and say, hey, you going in, Pip? No, I'm good. What? Leadership 101. What are we talking about here? This is how you're gonna lead your team, by throwing a temper tantrum on the bench when your playoff career is hanging in the balance. You don't win this game. This series is pretty much over with, and you're gonna sit there. But you deserve the same praise as Michael, right? Oh, you deserve that better contract, right? So I just thought this was hard. But look, now I posed this question on Twitter, and I got some kickback. Guys say, well, if you're the best player, why wouldn't you have the ball in your hand? That's not the point. That's not the point. It's so many times that you watch an NBA game, the best player does not have the ball in their hand. It was a reason why he was going to be the guy that was passing the ball in, why he was going to be the inbounder. Why? Because Phil feels that he was going to make the best decision as far as the passer to get the ball to Tony Kukoc. Okay, it was Tony Kukoc. It was his play to run. But you don't throw a fit. This is not how you be a leader. And this is when I bet you Scottie said, I want to be like Mike. Maybe not so much, because it's hard to deal with that pressure. We talk about Kyrie Irving all the time. Kyrie Irving wanted to leave Cleveland. Why? He wanted to be the man. How has that worked out for him so far?
Not good.
Not good. So, yeah, that 1.8 seconds put some sour tastes in people's mouth about Scottie Pippen as a Batman anyway. He'll go down as probably the best Robin that ever played in the NBA, to be honest with you. But when it came to Batman, he did not do himself any favors, and it showed you that heavy is the head that wear the crown. Jordan wore the crown. His neck was hurting because he wore it so long. And then Scottie had to wear it for a season in a piece, and he fell apart. He had to go get neck surgery. So that shows you, the grass ain't always green on the other side. So, yeah, man, those was my 3 takeaways from episode 7 and 8.
Yeah, a couple quick points on Scottie Pippen and that specific sequence that we're referring to in that game when he essentially quit on his teammates, and that was the phrasing that was used from other guys, including Steve Kerr. We gotta think about some other examples, and some of these including Michael Jordan, I'm going back to just the season before when they clinched against the Suns. The game-winning shot that clinched that series started with Michael giving the ball up. It goes to Scottie, it goes to Horace Grant, and John Paxson ends up clinching that series. And then if you take it all the way back to Michael's first year in college, if you recall, James Worthy and Sam Perkins were on those teams and were veteran players
Yep.
and went on to have great NBA careers. But in that national championship game against Georgetown, and the final shot was drawn up from Michael. So there is some. These are only two examples. There is precedent. It's not always your best player that takes the last shot, because
Exactly.
when you're talking coaching, when you're talking strategy, the other team knows who's the best player is. They know who they think is going to get the ball. And if you're a Phil Jackson, if you're a Dean Smith, it would kind of be in your best interest to go against the grain every now and again, so to keep the defense off balance. And in every one of these sequences that we're talking about the national title game in '83. We're talking about when the Bulls clinched their third straight title against Phoenix. And in this particular instance, Tony Kukoc hit this game winner. They all worked. So I am going to say this in defense of Scotty. Scotty was in the shadow of Michael for a long time. He gets his opportunity to be in the spotlight. And then in this specific situation, he probably felt a little shortchanged, thought it was his time to get the last shot. But Michael and Scotty, two different players. Michael's best score that we've ever seen. Scotty's best trait was always his facilitating. He was a great passer. So perhaps that's another reason why you want him inbound the ball. And don't forget this point, just a basketball piece of knowledge. How many times have you heard this? And this might not be applicable in this situation because of the limited time, but there is often in the last shot or the last possession, the most dangerous guy is the guy who inbounds the ball,
The inbounder,
because
yeah,
the defense isn't
absolutely.
always paying attention to him. So that was just an interesting
Listen, but see,
situation. Yeah.
one thing I just wanted to say was, like you said, he spent a long time in the shadow of Michael Jordan, and you know what that this decision made him do? Stay in the shadow of Michael Jordan. That's exactly what it did.
And this is a huge stain like that. And I think there was some commentary that was given like, yeah, this is always going to haunt him, like in conversations down the road.
Jordan
Like,
said that.
yeah, right. Yep,
He
he did.
said that.
So that was an interesting thing. And just like this was under the radar for you, I did not know this. There's a lot of different like notes and facts that I can remember from growing up from just reading books about Michael Jordan, because I read at some points in my life. But this is definitely something I did not know and was surprised to learn. But just another thing, and this goes back to the last two episodes of To 5 and 6. This documentary shows that the media wasn't always completely in Michael's corner. And in this episode, these two episodes, you just got some ridiculous headlines out of some of these things that are going on. I mean, I can't imagine, on one hand, my father dying, and then next thing you know, there are headlines being printed that are trying to connect me to him just because I gamble. And I mean, and then you know that I agree with you in the sense that his father's death wasn't what made him retire, but it was. I think it's fair to say it was a factor. And also another factor is the media coverage and some of the stories that were printed that basically doesn't seem that like they had a leg to stand on, including the other notion that when Michael retired and went to play baseball, the backdoor story was David Stern suspended him for 18 months for gambling. So it's just, I mean, I can understand if I was Michael Jordan, I can see how that would really negatively impact me, because there's some things that are just out of bounds unless you absolutely know these things for a fact and can back it up. And there wasn't anything that I saw that could corroborate what these reports were saying. And then you go back to the retirement. We got to remember, and this was brought up, people had a notion that Michael was going to retire at some point very soon during the Dream Team sequence. And I think Michael let some people know, like, I would have retired right now. But the thing that was still driving him was the three-peat, because Magic and Larry had won 2 in a row, and you can throw Larry hadn't won 2 in a row. I don't believe. I don't think Larry ever won 2 in a row. Magic and Isaiah Thomas, they both won 2 in a row. Michael wanted to exceed them and win 3. So if that motivation wasn't there, we could have saw him exit the game even sooner. So, and then you talk about the baseball, which of course you know how much I love baseball, and I'm glad we get to talk about it just briefly in this. But you recall, this was a keynote I didn't know. He started out pretty red hot when he played on a 13-game hitting streak. And then one of the things about baseball is you see guys from time to time come up and they'll have some instant success. And then what happens is it's a game of adjustments. And pitchers are going to adjust to what you're doing. And they said he didn't see a fastball for about a month. And took him a long time to adjust to the breaking stuff, to the off-speed stuff. But eventually he kept improving, and his work ethic was just the same. That his work ethic that he had in basketball was the same. He applied that in baseball. And there was a belief that if he had continued and have stuck with baseball, he could have made it to the major leagues one day. We know that's not how it turned out, but what a testament to his work ethic and his athletic ability that people thought that much of him, that he had an opportunity to do that. And then you look at the return, and so I think some people that Eastern Conference Finals or Eastern Conference semifinals loss against Orlando when he returned, I think some people may want to hold that against him. Didn't have instant success right away when he came back, but you got to remember he only played 17 games that season. He came back very late, and you could tell the conditioning was not there. The baseball conditioning he was in a lot different than it was or is in basketball. So definitely he needed that full off season to come back in 95, 96 to really get back to being Michael Jordan.
Now I got a question for you. So I think, because you got to think about it two ways. Let's say had he won a championship and he came in, he would have got credit for the championship, right?
He would have, yeah.
I mean, it would have been another, another accolade, a high accolade at that he won it. So I think it's fair that he got a little criticism. I was surprised that he would come back in the middle of the season. I thought he would did himself some adjustments and just waited till the season was over. But I think that comment, what really stuck out during that time was he started with 45. Nick Anderson made that comment saying, "Hey, 45 ain't 23, baby. I don't know who this is." Then he changed back into jersey. Little spark a little bit, but we seen what happened. Orlando ended up still winning the series. So, if he was gonna get the credit, I think he had to get the blame as well.
I think some blames. You can give him some blame, but also I think it is something that we can gloss over and give him. I think it is excusable in some sense because it's not like he came back middle of the season, 17 regular season games, and you haven't been training. You've been in baseball conditioning, playing baseball, and people were making the point. His trainer making the point. It's a whole lot different, and he needed that full off season to get back to full strength. And you can also say that loss because you remember Horace Grant, coming in there flexing, being like, "Oh yeah, we got him." That loss was the worst thing that happened to the NBA because it set the stage for another three-peat. Because that loss, fueled Jordan for the next 3 years, and including the very next season, they had the best season of all time.
Yeah.
And second to date, second best regular season, but they're still regarded as the best team of all time because they won the championship.
They got the job done.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting in that final series, and we touched on this a bit earlier, that George Karl waited to use Gary Payton defensively against Michael until that hole was at 3-0. A little bit too late by then, and I also believe. I don't know if it would have made a difference regardless. If he could have started game one, I mean, Michael would have eventually figured it out. Same thing with, Patrick Beverley trying to guard Kevin Durant. I mean, eventually he's going to get loose. You're not going to be able to stop him for an entire series. And, back to the Michael Jordan, Steve Kerr thing, and I'm not going to get into exactly what happened, but the aftermath of that was their relationship was very positive right after that. That Steve Kerr standing up for himself, he earned Michael's respect. And they had a great relationship from there on out. And Steve Kerr hit big shots for this team during this stretch. So you can look at it as a positive.